not the idea?
People simply forgot about it.
Yes.
Unjustifiably.
Yes. Yes, I certainly would not disagree with that. So to say that thinking about a clear purpose is interpreting, I agree absolutely. I can't imagine any translator or interpreter not doing that, except under conditions of extreme duress. I mean, like this, apparently if you force people to translate very fast, the Skopos is, I suppose, to complete this assignment as fast as possible. I mean, they don't think about the Skopos at all, as I mentioned earlier. You had a comment, did you? Was it?
Yeah.
Do you want to come up to the microphone?
You've got lots of people saying things online as well.
Good. Okay. Well, pass some of them on.
I think I'll make it depressing again. This has to do with ethics. You mentioned that one of the criticisms was that it doesn't tell the translator how to handle certain scopi. And my question is, why should it? It seems like we as translators exist in a world where sort of our ethical and moral values are given to us or taught since a very early age. So when I'm a translator and I get, say, a client approaches me and says, I want you to translate this Nazi propaganda, I don't need Skopos theory to tell me, don't touch that. So I don't see why it's such an issue that it doesn't tell the translator when to reject a project or not.
Skopos theory would simply say, go ahead and do it and think what the Skopos is of the translation. But it wouldn't, within Skopos theory, you don't ask yourself the question, is this a good idea or not to translate that text? So one of Anthony's books on ethics starts with the question, why translate? In other words, or should I translate this or not, or leave it untranslated? Well, how do you?
No, why translate?
But I mean, that's not.
Why translate this text now?
Yes. Okay. So the Skopos question would. The Skopos begins with how. Okay. How do I translate this text? What's it for? But the question why translate is outside the theory. You just don't ask it within the theory. Within the theory.
And I guess that's my point. Why is that a problem? Does the theory propose to tell people what they should translate or not?
No, it doesn't.
So is it really a weakness then that it doesn't have that? That's my question.
My argument is that if Skopos theory is embedded in a theory of human action, which involves decision making, human beings are ethical beings. They weigh up reasons to do X or Y, partly on ethical reasons, often, sometimes, once a year, whatever. Then to have a theory which deliberately rules out ethics and yet claim to be saying something about human action seems to me to like you're leaving a chunk out of the cake. You're not looking at the whole picture. So from that point of view, I think it's a weakness.
Can I just go through these people here because I'll get frustrated, right? And then we'll get just dismiss these ones. Tayoko Takeda suggests that it seems systems theory is the only robust theory operative in translation studies, and this is not. I don't know about that. Right?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. That it's the only robust.
Or the most robust. Anyway, that Skopos theory seems to have lost its thrust that it had in the 1980s.
Well, it's made a point, and the point is, as you were saying, the point is basically very simple. It's not a new point. It's made a point, and I think everybody's accepted the point. I mean, you look at any book on translation theory, and there's a section about function or about purpose or something, but it hasn't really got beyond that. I repeat, it hasn't really developed any generally accepted typology of types of purpose. I mean, you'd expect that. There are dozens of typologies of types of equivalence, for goodness sake, but none on types of purpose, or only one that I could find. Maybe there are others that I haven't found. That's quite possible, of course.
Other questions are, Bashi says we seem to be slaves to Skopos, and if you have your action has a purpose, doesn't that make you rational, by definition? Well, we've talked about rational, irrational. I must admit that's not clear to me. What you mean? I'm trying to paraphrase along the introduction.
What do I mean? I think I wish to question the assumption that translators make their decisions on an exclusively rational basis, as if they were like computer algorithms, working like an algorithm.
One final comment before we return here. Shari, maybe Skopos theory is so good it doesn't need any further research. It didn't have to test itself empirically on any real data. Which I think is, the point I liked most, Andrew, was you started at the definition of theory and it talked about observation of data. And there is no observed data.
It doesn't do it. No, it doesn't do it.
It doesn't fulfill its own conditions for being a
Well, I say, you agree with that.
So
yeah.
why are we talking about this in 2011?
Because it's interesting and because it can make us think about what a theory is and about how to be critical a little bit, and
Okay.
because it's one of the few so-called theories which are there in the field. That's why we're talking about it. And it's interesting.
Professor Evans over. Want to say something?
Shall I go there?
No, you've got a thing there to speak through.
Can
If
you
it
hear
works,
me?
I don't know if it works.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
If you want to come here, that's good too.
I can't hear myself.
Okay.
Come and take a microphone.
I'd like to make a few comments.
Want to sit down over here? I can try to... That's
Why
right.
should I be privileged?
Because you
Why
deserve a privilege. I can also try to get that camera.
Well, I was going to say, move the camera here.
Yes.
Yes.
Camera is the most important thing here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll try to be short. Actually, I don't know where I should start. I'll start from the following. A theory does not emerge out of the blue. It emerges out of either polemics with some current situation, or because there are contradictions somewhere, clashes between certain perspectives that cannot be solved. So, as described very traditionally by Thomas Kuhn in The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, you proceed with some theories, you proceed with some procedures, and then you arrive at some dead end. When you arrive at some dead end, of course, it's a discussable issue what a dead end is, but people define a certain situation as a dead end, and then someone proposes a solution, a way out of the dead end. I don't see neither the one nor the other in the case of Skopos theory. Why has it emerged? What has it come to solve? What was absent in the classical theories of translation, even in NIDA's? I don't see NIDA neglecting such questions as purpose. And of course, if you look at the Russian translation theories, which I think have been tremendously neglected by most translation scholars today, you can see, for instance, if I think of such a book as Andrei Fyodorov, Introduction to Translation Theory, a book from the 50s, which also was preceded by others because already the Russian formalists were pioneers of translation theory, translation research. I don't really understand. So some fellow comes, proposes a theory, it doesn't solve anything, it doesn't introduce anything new into the known perspectives. There must have been a reason. Can you explain? Do you have any idea? You see, let me give you an example. When myself and Gideon Turi, who was my student, proposed the target-oriented approach to studying translation, we were in polemics with a long tradition of linguistics, which set the source text as the main factor in evaluating a translational situation. And we wanted to say it is not the source but the target that makes that is the most decisive factor in the translational situation. So at least we wanted to say something against some tradition and propose something different, a different approach to studying translation. What was the purpose of the purpose theory?
Surely the purpose was to dethrone the source text.
Well,
And
that
to
was done
dethrone
before.
equivalence.
That had been done before. If you will remember, Gideon himself, when he published his first little book, already formulated the idea of target-oriented approach to
Yes.
translation.
Yes.
But he didn't want to dethrone source text. He wanted simply to draw the attention to the possibility of better analyzing the translational situation
Yes.
by looking at the target rather than as the source. That solves many puzzles. That solves the riddle why a translation who is not an idiot should make so many alterations in the source text in his or her translation. I mean, if we look at all translational situations as products of idiots, imbeciles, unqualified people, then we have very simple explanations why translators have been eliminating parts of text, amplifying text, changing text, etc. This is not a good explanation, although it is valid. As you said, there are so many bad translators in the sense that they are not, they don't really understand the text they try to translate. But let us presume that everyone, no, let me reformulate it. When you look at translators, for instance, who used to be central writers or central producers of text in their culture, and you see their products, and you see that they followed such practices, you must come out with some other explanation.
I think that one contribution that Vermeer and his colleagues made, which might go towards explaining where the theory came from, was quite simply a question of marketing. He was quite successful, I think, in packaging together a set of fairly simple ideas, and then applying them, marketing them, selling them, giving them a good name. Skopos is a kind of a nice term, and it sounds technical a bit, and you can use it with clients and so on. I mean, it was it gave a term which has been widely used, and especially in its adaptation in the version by Christiane Nord, it's produced pedagogically clear, useful, common sense advice, you might say, on how to translate. You could say it's all common sense writ large, but somebody has to do the writing of it large, written large, so that it is written large, and it's good if it's like branding, isn't it? It's like giving it a brand.
Yes, but it's a dead end, in the sense that as you say, I believe you mentioned, there are open theories and closed theories. Closed theories, as one of the online participants said, you can't add anything to it. It's so perfect, it's there. It's like Greimas theories, as I mentioned this afternoon. Or it's like the beautiful book by Louis Hjelmslev, who tried to rewrite linguistic theory. He wrote a beautifully algebraic theory, but no one continued it because you could not add anything. It did not suggest anything. It didn't have hypotheses. It already was a complete explanation of the world, you see. And here the Skopos, the types of theories like the Skopos theories are in the German philosophical tradition are closer to philosophy rather than to a theory or to theories. A philosophy is a beautiful explanation of the world. It does not ask you to do anything. You see, I suppose you know the name Gould's, the name of Gould, one of the biologists. He wrote about evolutionary theory. And he said, scientists in the 19th century were not, biologists, they were not satisfied with producing beautiful words, they simply were interested in doing work. Yes? And this is what people often do not understand. Theories do not come to, have not emerged in the history of science in order to give us a religion-like image of the world. That is, answer all the possible questions. But theories have emerged in order to allow us solve riddles in a huge variety of situations. That is, if you, in the case of translation, if you can use valuable hypotheses from a theory in order to better explain and uncover hidden processes and procedures in a huge variety of cultures, from China to Latin America, then the theory is useful. It's open, it's useful, like Saussure's theory of language, Jacobson's theories of language and texts. I can think of many such examples of theories that were not closed, that suggested something, and that wanted to cope with something, were in polemics with something. And sometimes these theories did not last or did not have to go on and on and on. They simply came at a certain time to solve a certain problem and then were superseded by other theories that took the torch forward and carried it to some other avenues. Don't see it here. I'm sorry to say that much of the discussion sounded to me like scholasticism. That is of, all right, like when I was student of philosophy and I studied Hegel, you see, so it was so beautiful, everything was in place, the mechanism was going. You don't know what to do with it later on. It impresses you, of course. And you said it, you know, you said it twice. First you say it's a nice toy. People need toys from time to time to rejuvenate their interest in a certain topic. That's good enough for temporary theories to emerge, but then they have to go away. They have to die and be superseded by others.
Trying to pay homage to Vermeer.
No, Vermeer was, I mean, I'm not speaking about Vermeer. May I make
one last comment?
No, a comment about something else. I simply...
it's 8 o'clock.
No, I simply want to I catch this opportunity to set certain historical things right. the idea of equivalence versus adequacy was taken from the Russian theories of translation. It is formulated by Andrei Fyodorov in his Introduction to Translation Theory, a book he published in the Soviet Union, believe it or not, in 53 or 54. I took it from there, and Gideon took it forwards and developed it to give it, to cement it in a better way and to put it in correlation with the target-oriented approach. Because adequacy was formulated by Fyodorov as giving the source priority. This can happen in a target only at certain moments. For instance, when the Hebrew Bible is translated into English, in the King James Version, for instance, you get incredible language combinations in English that did not exist, that are verbatim translations from the Hebrew. And sometimes wrong translations, I mean literal translations, like the term children of Israel. Yes. There are no children of Israel in the original, but if you take it word by word, this is how you can translate it. Yet, children of has become an English expression. And there are hundreds of such expressions that emerge because of adequacy, the adequacy principle being able to function. In most cases, it cannot, and is simply superseded by the equivalence principle, which gives priority to the target in those moments where the target already has its own norms, and it's all, you cannot break through the impossibilities of the target in such moments. Very rarely. You can do that very rarely.
Professor, we're going off track.
No, I simply...
You're going to have a talk in 2 days' time.
No, I'm not going to talk about translation at all. Equivalence and adequacy, I simply wanted to pay respect to Andrei Fyodorov and the whole school of Russian linguistics and translation studies. So let's put things right.
Okay.
If I may.
Okay, Andrew, you've just switched off all our contact with the outside world.
That's good.
That's okay.
So that was good timing.
25 people out there.
Sorry, people.
Come on.
I was just taking out my thingy here.
I did something positive, but
Sorry,
may I express my gratitude and admiration for Andrew Chesterman for having done this work with so much patience. I'm not saying it's much ado about nothing. It's not. No, on the contrary, you have helped clarifying very tough problems and perhaps help us distinguish between unnecessary theories and necessary theories, which is very important.
Oh, that's an interesting question. We could come back to necessary theories and unnecessary theories on Friday.
What's Friday? That's Happy Friday. That's us on television. Yes.
Necessary theories.
Necessary theories. Very good.
That's good.
Necessary
questions and their theories. We were discussing at lunch how we might formulate this Friday.
12:30. You know, across here diagonally, now that we're without the outside people, we have a television studio on campus just next to the cafeteria. So on Friday at 12:30, I'm going to get these two guys and ask them questions in the hope of getting some intelligent responses.
But nothing on
But we
Hegel.
don't know what questions we need.
Nothing, please do not mention Hegel. Nothing about Hegel, please.
I'm a fan of Hegel.
No, I cannot manage Hegel. No Hegel.
If you've got ideas, okay, there you go. Come up with ideas for intelligent questions to let them give some intelligent answers. And if they can argue with each other, that would be even
Other
better.
people can also supply answers, surely.
Remember, Marx emerged from Hegel.
Yes.
This is one of the reasons.
Marx, okay. Hegel, not okay.
I agree.
We have an agreement already.
Okay.
Perhaps we can cancel.
Thank you for putting up with this past 8 o'clock without a break. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, 422.
Thank you for your coming.
Michaela Wolf, I believe. I hope she's arrived, and you will be converted to, you made activists tomorrow.
I'm sorry, I switched off the whole of the outside world without saying thank you and goodbye.
I don't know how to connect.
I'm sorry, I never realised it. I was just changing the screen.
Yeah, I don't know how to get it right. Oh, they'll just leave it on. It seemed to work pretty well because I was following it up.
Really? It was okay.
The people were.
Could they see that? Could they see that?
Yes. Yeah, they had the top view and the bottom of the
Oh,
thing. Then I changed it to just view. I can change the two cameras so they can comment. And actually, it is interactive. You would have a system where people can come in and speak to them. If they've got a webcam, they can, yeah, we can do that. We might experiment with this.
Yes.
Oh, Candace, you know, was there? Three people in Monterey, and lots of people in Iraq. It's 9 o'clock at night in Monterey.